You ever heard Mike Posner?
I have not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. You ever heard this? I can write you a song to make you fall in love. I would already know you were best of my heart.
No idea.
You think you're cooler than me. Never heard that?
No.
You think you're cooler than me.
This is the artist. So this is, Jeff Wittig. We don't really need to know about him, but he's a famous podcaster. And he has a guest on his podcast who is Mike Posner, the guy that I was just singing. And Mike Posner is a Jew.
Okay.
But he goes to Christian church because he likes the worship.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just you'll get to see his take on it, and we'll talk about it.
Go to a Christian church, but you're Jewish.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
I'm Jewish ethnically, so I don't really practice, but I have a direct relationship with God. I believe in God. In that church, they play really great music. It lights me up, it fills me up.
There's no gospels in like synagogues.
There's some great Jewish songs, but I have to say as a whole, I think the Christians went out on the music front, like the gospel music is pretty fire.
It's almost like the Jesus Revolution movie where they said that's what really created the Christian music revolution that had taken a lot of evangelical churches. I think worship is important to the Christian experience. It's a big part of our experience. And there are a lot of people who are drawn in to the church and into following Christ because of the music. From all the way back in the 70s and 60s, 50s, the music has always been something that people were drawn into. They felt or experienced something when they worshiped God. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. I think that's what he's experiencing. We call believers who are Jewish, Messianic Jews. They believe that Jesus was the Messiah. He came and he died on the cross for our sins. And I don't know if that's where he's at.
No, he's not.
Huh?
He's not.
He's not. Well,
he's just attending because he likes the music.
Because great. Hopefully something happens while he's there.
Encounters him. Where
he encounters God. I think even he believes in God. He wants to worship God. I think he's seeking. And that's an incredible thing. When people are seeking, they may not, their lifestyle or what they're doing may not demonstrate that God is sanctifying them yet, but maybe he is and you can't see it.
Yeah.
So, when I watched that video, I thought it's just interesting that there is an awareness and an openness to want to worship God. I'll tell you what, if the guy had demons, he wouldn't want to worship God. He'd be running from it.
Yeah, there's what I think is interesting is, and this is, it actually, I think it popped, it was one of the things that popped in my head when we were in Israel was, you hear like, oh, the Jews rejected Jesus, right? And Jews don't believe in Jesus. And it's like, Paul was the one that came along and he twisted everything. And this is why people, are worship Jesus, but that's not what the early Jews believed. And then that's just something you believe, that Jews, if all of them are just, they don't believe. But God has always kept a remnant. And in a matter of fact, the gospel was first preached to the Jews. It's their gospel that was preached to them. And the only reason we have it around the world is because Jews brought the message of Jesus, the message of the gospel to the rest of the world. It was Judea and Samaria, then to the ends of the world. And on the day of Pentecost,
I don't know.
Peter,
I don't know where the whole Paul thing came in, where that's the start of the
Muslims
church.
believe that. Jews will say that.
That's not true at all. All the disciples were Jewish. The disciples left Jerusalem and took the gospel to the diaspora, which were Jewish. The diaspora that was sent out about 400 years prior to the coming of Christ, they were in all of these cities, Greek, Turkish. They were all over the place. You find synagogues that were there. And when the missionaries, and Paul wasn't the only missionary. Yeah. He's the only one they record and they write about. So you assume Paul's the only one preaching the gospel. But we know Apollos was even before Christ died on the cross. He's going around talking about John the Baptist, the baptism of John.
So interesting.
And so there are many different missionaries going out to these communities. We know that the churches in Revelation that we went to, those weren't planted by Paul or maybe even a convert of Paul. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Epaphras was a convert of Paul and disciple, and he planted 3 of them, we know. But John also had people that he led to Christ, and they became missionaries. So, and they were going to synagogues.
Yeah.
And taking the gospel to synagogues. In fact, Christianity was just viewed as a sect of Judaism. They weren't even separated. If you were a Christian in the early church, you were considered still part of the Jewish synagogue, like you were converting to Judaism. And that was a big deal. And when we get it, we're talking about this in the fall, but if you, as a Christian, you wanted to be tied to the synagogue because it gave you an exemption from having to say Caesar is God. And if you could not say that, they wanted to kill you. So it was a big deal. So anyone who says that the church didn't begin from Judaism, like the Christian church, its inception and for decades after that, it came from Judaism. Paul himself was a Jew, and the entire
Pharisee.
and the entire New Testament, with the exception of a few books, are written by Jewish people. The entirety of the Bible, when you think of it, come from Jewish, with the exception of a few books, come from Jewish people.
Which people don't. Even I know you know it, but then you realize it when you're in conversation with people that think that, Jews just reject it, or this is just some spin-off and we worship some deity that's worshiping idols or whatever. It's
Jews rejected Jesus just like Gentiles, pagans rejected Jesus. When do we start saying, well, Jews, the Jews reject? Not all Jews rejected Jesus.
There's still people today that are continuing in that heritage.
There are many Jewish people who follow Jesus Christ. This throwing it all in, just like Gentiles and
or thinking it's a European thing. That's another popular thing that I hear, that it's like a European concept and it's the white man's religion that we put our spin on it.
I mean, it's in this case with this guy who
hope he finds Jesus.
Yeah. Great. I'm glad that he was music drew him in.
Yeah.
Whatever can draw you in, bring you in to have an opportunity to hear about Christ. I pray that God gets a hold of his heart.
And it becomes more than just a melody, but he would have an encounter.
Right.
And he would know who he's worshiping, not just singing along with the tune.
Yeah.
Group karaoke, right?